now no longer work for Healthwatch Camden. I had to, with regret, give up that job because I do feel it's now a conflict of interest. So I'm not with Healthwatch Camden anymore. And I am, as of whatever it was, 1st of September, the new cabinet member for promoting neighbourhoods and communities. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know you all better. I have to give sort of apologies for today because I've literally just got back from hospital having had a total hip replacement. So I'm totally zonked and on morphine and sort of propped up on a chair here. And I'm not going to stay with you for the whole meeting, but I didn't want to miss the chance to say hello. And I will. I've already tried to organise to speak to some of you one-to-one, and I'm going to continue to do that. I want to meet all of you and get to know the people that I don't know in the voluntary and community sector in Camden as quickly as I can. I was listening in again from flat on my back to the food summit yesterday, and what an incredibly impressive and energizing event that was. And it was interesting. There was a guy there, an academic who I know a lot of you were at that event, an academic who'd asked to come and listen in because he's doing work looking at the food response that's gone on across a lot of different local authorities in England over the COVID response. And he was incredibly impressed with what's happened in Camden. But the thing he particularly noted afterwards that he was impressed with was how joined up. He was very impressed with how joined up Camden's response had been. And I think that really, I think that is something that you all can take enormous credit for. Not only has there been this immense range and diverse creative response, you know, all of you doing such different things that are appropriate to the particular communities you're serving and the particular offer that you can make. So there's a wonderful kind of creativity and different people just getting on with it. But at the same time, shown a real willingness to work together, and that partnership working has produced that joined up response that has meant it's been doubly effective. And I really think the response that's been launched in Camden because of our incredible voluntary and community sector has been really, I think, one of, you know, the best in the country, I think. I think we need to try and get some award. Anyway, the task now, of course, is to prepare for possible second wave, but also much more longer term. As you all know, you don't need me to tell you this, what COVID has exposed as an underlying issue that was there all along. You know, food poverty is real, and it's in Camden, and it's here to stay unless action's taken. So the need moving forward is now not just about that immediate response because of possible lockdown, but a much deeper and more strategic response that's about tackling those underlying issues of poverty and complex social conditions that make people find themselves with food in a situation of food insecurity. So the thinking that's now going on, and I'm hearing about it from you all around cooperatives and different ways of actually addressing the food challenge in a more sustainable way, is exactly what needs to be happening, and very impressive. And I just want to thank you all for everything you're doing and for everything I know that you're going to carry on doing, and to say that as Camden, we are here to be supporting you in every way we can and helping with that joining up. So thank you, and I hope you have a really constructive meeting today, and I look forward to seeing all of you much more.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Anna. And yes, it's really nice to hear all those kind words, and also, you know, I think the commitment to the ongoing relationship is the important thing, and the thing that we all will value. So that's really great to hear that. And please do feel free to stay as long as you want. But obviously, we understand, and wish you a speedy recovery. I'm amazed that, I mean, this is modern medicine for you, but I'm amazed you're up and you know, conscious already.
Only just.
No. That was very coherent. Great. Okay. So I'm going to just share my screen now, and I've got a couple of things. Sorry. Bear with me 1 second. Now, hopefully you will all be able to see that now. So that's the program for today. We're running a little bit behind, so I'll speed through the news items before we get to the main item on food. The two news items I'm going to look at. First one is really about a new voluntary sector emergencies network and a pulse survey. And the second item is just to mention some initiatives in Camden. That one's very brief. So the Emergencies Partnership, it's basically a new national partnership. I'm going to skip through this because the important thing is the idea is to link local organizations via the CVS network with nationals who do things that are of interest to us, and try and get local and national working better together. There's three main things. There's this, number one is improved and ongoing insight. Now, this is the pulse survey. This is what I'm going to spend most of the time talking about. The other two are about coordination and using sector-wide resources and better collaboration. So I'll mention those briefly. And of course, it's regionally based, and of course, we're in London. So this is, apart from the pulse, this is the other interesting bit of it, is that the idea as well is that it will be able to deal with emergencies. So if there's a particular region where some aspect of the local work has a problem, then the local sector will be able to put a request for emergency support up to the national level, and that will be escalated through the system. Now, what they're saying is that they think this is largely going to be by exception. They think this is really to help out in an area where, for whatever reason, some local aspect really needs support. So it's not going to be a regular thing, but something by exception. Now, this is what I want to talk mostly about. This is a pulse survey. So what they want to do, and the idea is to sort of take the pulse of every bit of the country every week, just to check that things are on course. And this is coming to VAC as the local member. And I'm going to run through all of the categories, and you'll see that some of these areas we know about because of the community links and our links with various projects and yourselves. But some of the things we know less about, and for this to be accurate, we're going to need you to let us know if there are changes. So let me just run through the categories, and you'll see there's a lot. So, well, this is completely appropriate for today. The first one is about food and nutrition. So are people able to get urgent food? And it's all the questions are in two parts. There's one about giving an estimate of how many people are being able to receive the assistance, and then an estimate of where that's going in the next 14 days. And let me run through the categories, and you'll see some of these trickier than others. So there's a healthcare one. Now that's an interesting one. because, well, that's a statutory provision, really, healthcare. And I don't know, maybe we could link with Health Watch. So Anna Walsh, maybe we catch up about that one afterwards. Next one is mental health. Well, that's very appropriate. We have a lot of referrals. Social prescribing does referrals. So again, something we are in touch with. Now, temporary accommodation, homelessness. Here's an interesting one. I think we will need SHP and others to be letting us know, because I don't think we have enough information day by day to know that ourselves. So, and as ever, the sort of projection for the next 14 days is an interesting one. This one is called protection. It's really talking about domestic violence and access to assistance. And I know Benaifa was talking about one of their projects losing money recently. So again, we will be very dependent on people in the sector letting us know what we should be saying here. I mean, can everyone get the DV assistance they need? And where is it going in the next 14 days? So as I said, this pulse survey is every week. So just a couple more categories. There's one about connectedness. Now, this is one about how many people can access online services. Now, this is quite an interesting one, because when we say people in need, is this the people we know about coming to our community centre? You know, and when you make these judgments about most, half, a few, none, it's a little bit unclear. But obviously an important category. Another one is education and training. So, I mean, David, it's interesting that you're on the call, because you're probably one of the few people that really has a good sense of where employment advice and training assistance is at the moment. So I think we'll be relying on you and some of your other colleagues to give us an idea of what to put for this one. Hardship. Financial support, able to access assistance. Again, some of you will know this, and I think we will be needing some guidance. Obviously, there are also trusts and foundations, Hampstead Wells and Camden notably, as well as St Giles, so we can get some guidance from them. Utilities, are people able to pay for gas and electricity? I think some of the community centres, you might know this, some of the debt advice services, but it's, right, we're coming towards the end. So these last two categories now, so there are two categories. Now this is really quite a challenge. So you've got vulnerable populations. In the last 7 days, do you think any of these population groups were in particular need of support? This is tricky. So we've just got BAME as one whole category: the elderly, children, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, refugees, and then other. And then it doesn't define in particular need of support. I think all of those groups are in need of support. What does particular mean? We're not quite sure. And final category, in the next 14 days, do you think any of these groups will be in particular need? So this is the second part of the same question, looking for the next 14 days. So, sorry, let me just end it there. So that is the pulse survey. So what we're going to do is put a little bit more about that in the bulletin on Friday, summarize the categories. But I think we will need to hear from you to really have any chance of giving an accurate survey. Now, this is going to be weekly. At the moment, it's just bedding down. The plan in the future is that if this is useful, then it will be published weekly as well. But at the moment, it's not being published until it beds down. Let me do the second news item, and then we'll just take any questions at that point. So the second news item really is just to highlight that there's some new bodies, structures in the borough that have appeared very recently. Since the pandemic, the council have been convening a VCS leaders forum, and this at the moment is back to fortnightly. It was a bit, I think it's been ad hoc at different stages, and it's an invited group of VCS chief execs mainly, and it's convened by the Communities Directorate, I think chaired by Carol Stewart at the moment. And so that has been happening for the last 8 months. There is a renewal commission. This is a major commission to look at the future of the borough after the pandemic. It's got a page on the Camden website, and the list of the members of the commission has been published. I think a couple of people from the VCS are on that commission as well. And finally, as you know, there's been a lot of BAME disproportionality work being done, and the council have now set up a directorate looking at inequalities, and that is headed up by Hanad Mohammed. And that is convening a VCS communications group. But at this stage, we don't know much more about that. Let me just stop sharing for a moment there. So if there are any, I don't know if there are any questions on that. Michelle, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah. I was just wondering about the pulse survey, whether you've thought about whether there's an easy way of gathering this information, because it's on a weekly basis. I mean, the questions aren't numbered, but it might help if they were. Then, then people can just send you a weekly thing relating to question number 10, for instance, or I don't know, or whether you design a pro forma, I just don't know.
No, I think that's a good idea. I mean, this is all very new, so all of these ideas will be useful. I mean,
yeah, because otherwise it's going to be quite a task, isn't it, to do it on a weekly and then to try and work out which question each of us is responding to.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, that's a good point.
Or maybe create a pro forma with the questions in and put the week date on it, and we just complete it every week and just answer the questions relevant to us. I don't know. They're just thoughts I just thought of now, but maybe others, yeah.
Yeah, I
trying
think
to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, no, that's one way of doing it. Absolutely. I don't know if anyone else has got any thoughts on that or questions. I mean, it depends. I mean, what occurred to me, Michelle, was that a lot of people will have knowledge in one particular area. So I sort of mentioned, I singled out David from WEP. Now, as an employment advisor, he might know something about that sector. So there's no point filling in the rest of it. It's just like a quick email each week saying, well, everyone's getting access to advice, or half the people are, or whatever it is. But again, I don't know if even people who are working at the coalface in these areas would be able to make a judgment. But I think what we will do is put more information, put all the information and the links in the bulletin on Friday, so that you can have a look and think about think about it more. Okay, and yes, if you've got any thoughts as well, do put them in the chat, and we will look about those later. So right, without further ado, let's get to the main item, which is we're calling Parcels to Participation, which is looking at food projects in Camden. And so my suggested running order is to start with Philip, get an overview from Philip's perspective, then Rashida, then Farah, then Mick, and then finally Kirsty, and then we'll open it up for questions and discussion. And some of you may have been to the summit yesterday that Anna Wright mentioned. So if there's useful feedback from that, that would be good to hear as well. So if we're all ready to go, let me hand over to Philip. And Philip, I need to make you a co-chair so that you have the power to share your screen. Hopefully that has
actually Kevin, don't worry. What I'm very conscious of is there's a number of people in here that were at the Food Poverty Alliance yesterday, and also not trying to take chairing away from you. I'm sure you'd appreciate less than my my full 5 minutes. So what I'm probably going to do is just talk to what's going on at the moment, because you're probably going to be more interested in hearing about what's going on from organisations' perspective. So I'm going to give a very quick overview, if that's okay. So for those that don't know me, very quickly, I'm Philip. As I said before, I've been working as a food strategy manager since the beginning of lockdown, and my role has been really a liaison between the local authority and external partners outside of Camden. By that I mean, so we were asked by the London Food Alliance, which is a body made up, as many of you may or may not know, of the Felix Project, Fair Share, City Harvest, in order to ensure that the London food response, especially around food surplus, is consolidated. And then further on in the response, when DEFRA gave out money to large-scale organisations to make sure that food was distributed, the request was that local authorities ran a hub and took the responsibility of the extra mile, as the food surplus organisations call it, the last mile rather. We took that on, so we had the distribution to the Crowndale and we distributed around the borough. Where are we now? We are working really closely with the London Food Alliance to try and increase the amount of food coming into the borough. Sadly, not as successfully as I'd like. They really are moving back to a point of distributing to partners who were in place before the pandemic. We are managing to get them to take on partners bit by bit, but it really is based on a one-by-one relationship. A few of you commented that you're setting up services around the funds that were released by the Edward Harvest Trust. The Edward Harvest Trust is a trust that's managed by Camden, and I was the person that had to write to Edward Harvest Trust to get those funds released and to create the projects, or the framework in which the projects could work within. And I'm really pleased that the majority of projects got a sizable, if not the complete amount that they asked for, but if not a sizable amount of money towards the projects that are up and running. We're in the process now of doing a bit more distribution. I've negotiated with an organisation to bring in actually the organisation that was behind the Arsenal food drop, negotiating with them to get significant quantities of food brought into the borough, and that will almost be a mini hub again, just to get that food in and out. I have spoken to a couple of you about possibly using some of your space, but I don't think anyone's got the amount of space that's needed for the amount of food that I'm hoping to get in. Big part of my role is ensuring that wave 2, as it's beginning to wash over us, that we're well placed to respond to that, making sure, as we said, there's enough food, enough money, enough resources, and enough capacity within the sector. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say thank you for letting me come and actually listen to find out exactly what the sector's up to. Between yesterday and today, I think we are really feeding that information up to the upper powers that be within Camden to make sure that any resources that are needed can be pulled down. So I'm going to stop there because I know there's questions afterwards.
Great. Okay, thanks, Philip. Yes, so let's hold your questions for the end. Let's hear from the speakers and then do the questions together. So Rashida, can I ask you to go next, please?
Can you give me permission to share my screen?
Sorry, yes. You should be enabled now.
So firstly, I'm going to apologise to anybody that was at the summit yesterday or at the councillors meeting last week, because I'm probably going to sound like a broken record. But as I said, I'm the director at Urban Community Projects, and we run Camden Mobile Food Bank. Just to give you a quick background, it was set up by 48 young people in 2017. We had a container near Camden Square, and we moved to Somerstown last year. So since COVID-19, we've been running an emergency food bank. We were used to getting donations from local people, but since COVID, we've been supported by Phoenix Court, who purchase our food for us, totaling nearly £1,000 a week. We've also been supported by the Story Garden, who, I don't know if you guys know, they're the skip gardens. They grow fresh fruit and fresh produce. And we also tapped into what Philip was doing, his distribution as well. Over the last 18 weeks, we've supported 1,437 people with emergency food parcels, and we support 60 families every week from Edith Neville School. A couple of headline figures: 403 of those people are unemployed as a result of COVID-19. So they've actually lost their job because of the pandemic. And another really scary headline figure is that 975 people that have accessed our food bank live in homes with more than one child. So yeah, the pandemic has hit our community in Somerstown really hard. You're going to be hearing from Farah as well. So she was also running food and emergency food services in Somerstown. So it was nice to have the two organisations kind of complementing each other in that sense. So what have we learned? Well, our referrals have completely increased. It's gone crazy. To put it into context, if you think nearly 1,500 people have accessed the food bank in 18 weeks, last year we had less than 500 for the whole year. So our referrals have completely increased, but a lot of the feedback from our food bank users are, because our form is online, if they don't have any credit or they don't have access to the internet at home, then they can't access our online form. We've been pre-packing food, so we don't know necessarily the food that we're giving to people is actually the food that they need. And that's going to be a big thing that we kind of move to look at going forward. It's about creating choice and dignity and control. And also more support is needed. So as I said, the headline figure, 403 people are unemployed as a result of COVID. So what other support services can we offer when they come to the food bank? Volunteering, our volunteering's increased. We've had a lot more professional support. And again, it's about kind of looking at volunteering, the volunteering offer for food banks. Does it necessarily just have to sit with sorting and pre-packing bags? What other business support can food banks get from volunteers? So what are we going to be doing to kind of move forward? We've just started a new partnership with Somerstown Community Association and a couple of the key stakeholders that operate from the community centre, like Little Village, the Crick, hopefully tossing at Origin as well. And it's going back to dignity and control. So we're creating a shop environment. The fit out's nearly done. We are going to soft launch the shop in a couple of weeks with half of the parents at Edith Neville that we're already supporting. And by January, all of our food bank users will be offered a 15-minute appointment slot to shop in the shop. So again, it's about control and dignity, allowing them to choose the food that they need, as opposed to us thinking that we know what they need. Not going to do that because I know I've only got 5 minutes. Another big thing that we're doing to address, obviously, our users that don't have, if they haven't got credit on their phone or they haven't got Wi-Fi, we've got 15 young people that are going to work with an app developer to build a food bank app. It will work exactly the same as a supermarket app. So what we're hoping is that local food schemes or food banks has their own storefront. They will have all their food inventory uploaded on the app, and food bank users are able to click and collect what food they need. So it's just another way of us being able to be a one-stop shop, so where users can pick their food, but they can also get support, and they can also use the app to volunteer to different food schemes. It's about giving back control, so us not making decisions for people, allowing them to shop for the food that they need. The app will have a virtual store, so again, food banks and food schemes, and it's another great way of them being able to get support. So all of the things that we're doing moving forward are about those 3 key things: control, dignity, and how we can offer more support in a more unified way. That's me, because I will go on forever if I don't stop.
Great, thanks, Rashida. That was really really interesting and really useful. And really, yes, I'm sure there are going to be some questions about the app. That sounds quite amazing. So, Farah, you're next up now. I can give you.
No, keep it. If you could just, because I'm reading, so if you could please just show the pictures as I'm reading.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. So my name's Farah Rainfly, and I'm one of the founding directors of Life After Hummus Community Benefit Society. I've timed this, so it should stick to 5 minutes. A brief introduction for those of you that are new to us. We're BME-led. We've been offering community cooking classes, including hands-on family sessions in Camden since 2016, focused on healthy eating and waste prevention using what we call an intersectional framework, with on average 40 people per session cooking together, and at the time of 45% BAME engagement. We operate on a listen and respond basis, which enabled us to quickly pivot our activities as a result of the pandemic to meet the needs of our beneficiaries. So since April, we've been providing food parcels to beneficiaries in Somerstown and the surrounding areas to on average 300 people a week, circa 70 to 75 households. We are 3 part-time staff, helped by approximately 20 local volunteers. Our beneficiaries are predominantly households who have suffered a major loss of income, employment due to the pandemic. For example, we have many households that relied on the income as Uber drivers. We provide a request what you eat what you request model, a take on the buy what you eat what you buy waste prevention message. Each household can visit us once a week on the time and day that suits them, and together we prepare their food parcels. So these are the pictures you're seeing now. As we now have a 70% BAME engagement, predominantly Somali and Bengali, the first thing you will notice upon entering our shop floor, our items are separated into halal and non-halal. We spend on average £1,000 a week on supplies, which we have to fundraise, £500 of which is spent only on fruits and vegetables. Most of our beneficiaries cook and have multiple children. In fact, just under half of our beneficiaries are children. Designing our parcels this way by what we call co-design ensures that families most at need who have been hit hard by the pandemic do not have to make that choice of not being able to afford vegetables. Our beneficiaries anecdotally say that we have helped to keep their families healthy, that our food parcels have given them a chance to try different vegetables as we're able to buy what is in season and to rotate the weekly orders. To stretch our funds, we buy in bulk and decant some items out, such as washing up liquid, brown sugar, basmati rice, spices, and even powder for washing the clothes. Our food parcels of a choice are culturally appropriate, which equals dignity. Households take what they need for that week and often get to try new items that we receive in surplus. However, surplus only currently makes up to 1/4 to 1/3 of their parcels, as you cannot feed people a healthy diet on food surplus alone. Our beneficiaries come to us by referrals from the local primary school, Edith Neville, local ward councillors from Camden Council, Somerstown Medical Centre, VAC, and others. Importantly, we also accept self-referrals by assessment, which was an important key to connecting to the harder to reach Somali community who are not already engaged with mainstream partners. They make up circa half of our 70% BAME engagement. Our food parcels save each household on average £20 to £30 a week on their shopping bill. The cost to us in supplies is only circa £14. Having such close contact with each household on a almost weekly basis means that we're able to apply social prescriptions. At the height of the pandemic, this meant referring people to welfare rights at Camden Council on how to apply for the self-employed scheme. And more recently, referrals through VAC to care navigation to get access to their GP services, which quite a few are still finding very difficult. Thank you, Nazreen. Thank you, Mandira. For employability, we also do employability through a local job hub. Thank you, John Ed. And sadly, many in the last 3 weeks have also been referred to the Green Doctors funded by Camden Council for fuel vouchers or support through a one-off grant to tackle fuel debt. They are already having to make that choice of putting the heating on or not. From a sustainable viewpoint, this is twofold. We will continue to work very closely with this community and to help them back onto their feet. We have just applied for employability funding to hire our own local coordinator, fingers crossed, and conversations are still ongoing with Public Health Camden and Islington surrounding the sustainable provision of vitamin D and an evolution of our current food parcels to our ABCD asset-based community development, community fridge and larder. We have just hired a food surplus logistics coordinator thanks to funding from DEFRA through RAP to work more closely with local stores for quality supplies. Thanks to this, we've just taken on more than 20 local supermarkets and more local volunteers who collect on foot, bicycle and by car. For those on foot and on bike, we now provide hand carts and bicycle trailers. Beneficiaries already bring their trolleys, many of which we bought for them as a form of empowerment, and they bring plastic bags to reuse. We hope to expand this behavior into refill stations for oil, spices, rice, etc. Our financial model going forward will be a mixed revenue of grant funding from social prescriptions, waste prevention and other sources. We see our hands-on cooking classes returning in July 2021. Our volunteers tend to be a local person who wants to give back. That said, we now have a handful of volunteers who are also beneficiaries. Our current volunteers have also branched into mentoring and tutoring with our beneficiaries. For anyone that wishes to visit by appointment to see the model in action, please email me, farah@lifeafterhomeless.com or info@lifeafterhomeless.com. Our biggest challenge, returning to Somerstown, where 61% of our beneficiaries are. We had to move from where we were based. Currently, we are housed courtesy of Regent's Place on Drummond Street inside the Old Diorama Art Centre, where these pictures are taken until the end of this year. We are working with different parts of Camden on this matter. And that's me. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Farah. Thanks for that. Again, very interesting. Lots of food for thought there. No pun intended. Mick from Primrose Hill, over to you. I've shared my. You should be able to share if there's anything you want to show.
I'm just going to talk, Kevin.
Okay, great.
Okay, so yeah, I'm from Primrose Hill Community Association, and up until lockdown, we ran a lunch club at a 250-bed sheltered housing scheme just up the road from here. When the lockdown happened, we were stopped from going in there, so we didn't have access to their kitchen. At the same time, we had a volunteer who started cooking some meals for us to deliver. So we started that, and then that person went into self-isolation, so we lost that. And timing wise, we were caught with our pants down a little bit, just because just at that time we'd scheduled in some refurbishment work. So we ripped out our kitchen and we ripped out our flooring and all that. So that took a few months to get all that done. So we didn't have a kitchen on site. So this time around, we're just thinking what we can do if we're not going to continue the lunch club. And so we were looking at sort of need in the area. So we came up with this sort of plan for a neighborhood nosh, it's going to be called. And so we set the aims of this to try and help improve the diet of people who find it hard to cook from scratch, to reach people who are housebound and isolated, to bring the community more together using volunteers, to try and in some way tackle food waste by using food that would otherwise be thrown away, and to give people the chance to gain new skills as volunteers. So that were the general sort of aims of the project. And the simple proposal is that we'd have a vegetarian meal, which would be probably soup and a filled baguette, just something very simple like that, and which would be delivered or picked up. And we'd start off once a week. We'd start small. We'd try this out once a week, which then means we've got room to grow if it's successful and if there's a need for it. So we're hoping to make it all with some of it from donated food, and just top that up with purchases where we can. So we've looked into quite a lot of that. So then we looked at the need. So because we already had the lunch club going, we knew there was a need from Oldfield, which is the estate where we run the lunch club, which we serve probably about 20 to 30 meals a day, twice a week. So we know from there there's people in the community that would benefit from meal deliveries. We've had discussions with a food bank, and they're quite keen to get involved, and they've said that if we run this on the same day as they run the food bank in Primrose Hill on a Thursday, then they could issue vouchers and people would just come along and collect a meal from us. We're involved with a GP practice. I think Sue, who's on this call as well, has been involved with that, trying to get referrals from there. And we're looking at other ways to establish the need. We're doing surveys in the area and all that sort of thing. So then we looked at what resources we'd need, and so we're planning on running this with volunteers, entirely volunteers. What generally happens with things is a lot of it gets left at my doorstep. So with this one, we're trying to get a team of volunteers that would run it from start to finish. So we've got quite a large team that are interested already. So it's looking very promising. So we've had a restaurateur who's actually came in and been advising us, and he said he's willing to do the first one. So he'll give us advice and help and support throughout. Sourcing food. So we've been looking into the area. We've got we already have somebody who delivers organic food, which is just about reaching sell-by date, which we just give away. So we've got a source there. We've looked at other organisations. We've been speaking to Food Cycle, so people like Felix and City Harvest. We're hoping to link in with them as well in terms of food donations. And the referrals I've mentioned, we're working on that, and then delivery. So it would be either people come and pick up a meal from here, or we would deliver to people who are maybe housebound, isolated. So again, we'd need a team of volunteers to do that. Then we looked at the equipment, which I'm not going to bore you with all of that. We looked at a budget, just sort of the community association has sort of agreed to back the costs of this initially. So the initial setup costs it's only £1,000, but obviously there's going to be ongoing costs from there. And in terms of costs, what people pay, it's a free service, entirely free service, but we're going to suggest that if people want to donate anything, they're quite welcome to, which would go back into the project. We'll also be obviously looking for grants to once it's established a little bit, and it's proven that there is a need for it. We'll be looking for grants to help subsidise the project. And that's it really. That's in a nutshell. That's what we're trying to do for that.
That's great, Mick. Thanks for that update, and sort of nice to hear what's happening in Primrose Hill. I guess it's easy to imagine that, you know, we all know what Primrose Hill is like. It's easy to imagine that there's no need there, but of course that's not the case.
That's right.
So thanks for that update, and I'm sure there'll be questions later. So we've got one more speaker. So let's hear from Kirsty Walker from Cooperation Town.
So I'm really hoping, is my internet working?
Yeah, we can see you. Voice sounds okay.
Great, okay. So can I share my screen, please, Kevin?
Yes, give me a second. Sorry. You should be able to now.
Right, so as you guys can have a look here, just where my mouse is, you can see a attraction for the Somali Community Co-op. I just want to touch on what Fahara, is it said? That we have, you know, there's a high population of Asian families, and I think part of the problem is, again, you know, like Fahana said, a lot of them are Uber drivers, a lot of the mums were carers. We couldn't, as a food bank, sustain feeding them, so we got together with them and we have helped them to set up a food co-op. And we got it translated into their language. We got one of the ladies to talk to her community, and now the participants for the Somali community is 20 families that we're feeding. They pay £10 a week for their shopping. The bulk of it is surplus, comes for free. And then they pay an extra £10 to be able to buy things like rice and flour and stuff. Sort of, you know, the main aim is for everybody to be able to do this, no matter what community. At the halfway through COVID, we also survey to the Saturday. They can have a look here. We are planning to co-op along with their street. We also found
Kirsty, your voice is going. Can you try turning off your screen? That might help your voice, your camera.
number in a second. Camera, sorry. Is that? Can you hear me?
Yeah, try again now.
Yeah. So we also found we did a survey again about the people who we were feeding. We found out at this current moment, this was done in May, we were feeding 30 children. We also found that out of the people that responded to our survey, 38 people were struggling to feed their families, which is obviously what we are hopefully trying to combat with food co-ops. So everyone can just be independent and, you know, a bit like Farhana said, not have to have somebody pack your food bag, not have to feel like, you know, you're coming between your tail and your legs. And we're hoping that during this next crisis, that, you know, we can show people that, you know, even if you've got £1 or £2, you can collectively put that together with your neighbors. And, you know, you've got 6 neighbors, you put your £2 in, you can afford stuff to get you out of this situation and stop relying on pressed councils and other types of services. Right, there we go. See if I can stop the share now. Yeah. Hello. Am I on? Yeah. Cool.
Great. Thanks very much, Kirsty, for that. Well, thanks to all our speakers. That was really interesting, and obviously such a lot happening in the borough. I'd like to, without further ado, throw it open to questions, to comments, to debate. So if anyone wants to kick off, if anyone, yeah, I raise a hand, you digitally or physically or however you want. Michelle, is that an old hand you've got raised, or?
No, it's a new one.
The new one, okay.
I was waiting to see if anybody else would raise their hand
Okay,
first.
so I've got Michelle and then Effie. So yeah, fire away.
I mean, I just think this has been amazingly useful, and I just think it's incredible what you're all doing. I mean, I work from home. I only do a few hours a week, and not really going out anywhere. And so, you know, whatever I can do to help, I try and do from my living room. But the co-op has their own food scheme, which I've tried to tell a lot of the food projects about. I don't know how easy it has been to access. And what I've been trying to do is to find out, each store has its own food share partners. So I'm trying to find out who their partners are and whether they've still got capacity for more partners. So that's an ongoing task at the moment. And then separate to that, each co-op store actually has a community budget where they can support groups, whether it's, you know, with equipment that they need. I heard Primrose Hill talking about the need for equipment, or donations. They can make community donations. So I've tried to let people know how to access that. I mean, basically the store managers have to complete the application, which has to be approved by their area manager. So people need to go into their co-op stores, talk to their managers about their projects and ask if they're able to make community donations. And what I'm trying to do is follow that up. So if anybody has any difficulty with it,
Great.
And I can try and chase that up.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. And can you, if you just put your email in the chat, then everyone will, and we'll try and share that afterwards as well. But if you
I'll
put
do
it there,
that,
then people can get hold of you, because that sounds like an untapped resource, maybe. Effie, you had a question, point.
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's a comment, because I've just really enjoyed hearing kind of everyone's different takes, whether or not I've heard it recently, like Rashida's, or hearing Sarah's spiel, which is fantastic, or from the gentleman at Primrose Hill. It is just to kind of echo that, really amazing to see what's going on and how at the fore everyone is. So that's kind of just my general take. And obviously, I mean, I know the Alliance and the summit from yesterday has come up on a couple times in this call. And I guess what I wanted to share with the group, I know a number of you were there, but for those that weren't, one of the exercises we undertook was kind of trying to think around food poverty across the life course, and really breaking it down in thinking of those with this overarching emphasis on prevention, and breaking up what we want, what meaningful actions can come out of it for us, for our partners, and how we can co-produce that. So I mean, some of you know, you were in those workshops, but we set them up as kind of these charts. And one, I kind of just want to put it out there that I'll put my email in the chat bar, but please do contact me if that's something you'd either like to input on. We have that as a Google Doc. So if you'd like to kind of see what I mean and have some input, I can send that through, or at the very least to know that I can share the outputs we consolidate with you. I'm just very mindful of GDPR. I know I have some of your emails, but if you're happy to be a part of that, please do let me know. I'll put my email in the chat bar, or if you did have any questions about it. I know there's so much overlap. It'd be a good time to chat about it.
Thanks a lot, Effie, for that, and thanks for the feedback that you and Philip have given from yesterday's summit. And Donna was there from VAC, and I know many of you were there as well. And I think obviously there's a lot to be learned from that. So when I know you'll be publishing, so we'll certainly disseminate the results of what you did yesterday. Any other comments or points people want to make?
Yeah, I've just got a question. It's really been great listening to all the great stuff that you're all doing. And I just wanted to check, it might be that it's already happened, but in terms of how is this linked, or is there anything on the Camden Council website, so that if you have particular people in your area that needs referral to any of this kind of food support, how do we find out more about them, or how do we, the referral process, or is it centrally is it linked to Camden Council? Is it on there at all? Is there one stop where you can find out what's going on in Camden in terms of food?
That's a really interesting and very practical question, and I think one that we're probably all slightly struggling with. So VAC, we've got a directory and a map, and the map is quite a useful way to make a start on where the food projects and hubs might be. It isn't 100%. Philip, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, obviously one sort of referral route into individuals in need is for instance, community links and social prescribing. That's another way in. I don't know, Philip, what your thoughts are.
I've just pinged two things. I was actually writing in the chat room just to give my own email address and my direct line, but also there is a page that I've just popped up, which is the central resource for anything COVID related in Camden. So that link is there. I believe organisations, I need to remind myself, I believe organisations can also ensure that their own information is on there. But as you've rightly said, Kevin, also the main resource would also be the VAC directory. In the room, we have colleagues from time to spare. we're working with our community partners team who deal with mostly the strategic partners in the borough, and we're trying to develop beyond the community partners and beyond the strategic partners an internal referral network. So organisations, at the moment we're focusing on the advice network, and we're moving on to the food network, where organisations can ensure that if they don't provide a service, they can refer seamlessly between each other. And that's something that some people here have already started working on some of those processes. And once we feel that we've got something that's a bit more usable, we'll roll out a bit wider. And again, once again, that will be something that the more people that use it, the better it'll be, based on the fact that, as I said, the system is designed to ensure that people who organisations that can support do support, and more importantly, if you don't support, then you know how to move, support somebody to another organisation and give them the support they need, knowing full well that that is monitored. We're setting up an internal team to sort of monitor that, not in a, when I say monitor, it sounds very Big Brother. We're very much seeing ourselves as one of the partners within this. So we're recognising that residents will often present themselves to their community centre, their trusted source, but they will present possibly with some statutory needs, and we want to ensure that the sector can pass those back to us as well. Again, as I said, knowing full well that when that referral takes place, that you don't feel that it's just gone into the ether. So yeah, that is one of the biggest things that's going on at the moment, and I think Will and I are getting to know each other very, very well as a result of that.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. I think that this has been an ongoing challenge, is this idea of referrals, because people will go to many different places. I'm just sharing my screen here. So this is the VAC map. So it's largely, these are food hubs largely around community centres. So some people will go straight to the community centre. Some people will go to the council. This is the council webpage. And there's various links there, and of course some people will go to their GP, and if they go to their GP, then they'll probably end up in the social prescribing system. So as Philip said, one of the challenges is to bring the three sort of sections together, so that referrals coming in can go to the most appropriate place, whether they're coming into the voluntary sector, whether they're coming into health, or whether they're coming straight into the council. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions and points? I'm looking around. Is there anyone who wants to raise anything?
Kevin.
Zubair, yeah.
Yes, it's really interesting to see how well it's come together in Somerstown, with all the organisations working together to engage with their communities around food poverty. And I just want to see what we can do in terms of replicating that throughout the borough.
No, absolutely. Well, I think that the first step is to share what people are doing. So what Rashida and Farah, SDCA and others are doing, the Living Centre, it is really interesting. But I think it's such a big borough with so many different projects. One of the things we'll do at the end is, on the website, we will share the presentation, we'll share the recording of this, and if everyone is okay, we'll share the participant list as well with emails. So if you don't want your email shared, do let me know so that we take it off. that has been really interesting. I want to thank everyone who's come today, especially Anna Wright. That's wonderful that she made time for us so early on in her appointment. I'd like to thank all of our speakers. It's really great. Philip, Rashida, Farah, Mick and Kirsty. And thanks to all of you who've come and shared as well. It's really good to see you. We're back to being monthly with the forum meetings.